Hi everyone, my name is Cody Christofferson, the training coordinator here at Colorado LTAP. Thank you all for watching this video. This is actually our first Wednesday workshop. It is a program we are kicking off in tandem with our Tuesday tailgate talk programs. These kind of work hand in hand, and they will be held in alternating weeks. So Tuesday tailgate talks are going to be at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays, and then on the alternating weeks, between that, the Wednesday workshops are going to be held 3 p.m. on Wednesday. You can tune in or visit our website to access recordings. A little quick distinction about what a Wednesday workshop is. This is where we bring in industry experts and vendors to talk about their products, best practices and things like that. Help give you some more insight on how to do your job in a better way. And with that, we have today Wilf Nixon from the Professional Snowfighters Association, who's going to talk a little bit about some workforce issues that we may be encountering and how to resolve those, and then also factoring into the environment with snow and ice control. So with that, I will pass the torch over to him. Thank you all so much for attending.
Thank you so much, Cody. Let me pull up my slides if I can do that, and we'll get those up and going and get things started. So just thinking a little bit, and my thanks to both Cody and Heather for inviting me to do this, and to you all for sharing your Wednesday afternoon with me. It's great fun to be here. It's a rather interesting day weather-wise, at least in the middle of the country. Everyone's talking about extremely strong winds and all those fun things. Not much in the way of snow where I am in Iowa, but there is plenty around to make life interesting. So a few thoughts and thinkings about winter issues and the sort of stuff that, if it hasn't arrived for you yet, may well be coming pretty darn soon. We'll see what's going to happen in that. The first thing, and this is just me looking at who's talking about what out there in the whole, in the media, in discussions with various different groups that I'm involved with. And one of the big issues right now, without a doubt, is what I've called worker woes. It is harder this year than it has ever been to get and to keep plow operators in, if you will, keep them hired and keep them available for the winter season. There are many agencies reporting significant shortages, and in some cases, they've gone so far as to say, you know, these shortages are such that unless things change, we may have to end up, we will take more time to achieve our winter maintenance goals than we might have done in the past. Now, a few things about this. First of all, it's not new. We've known this was happening for a number of years, and there are a number of long-term factors coming into this. If you look at the folks who actually drive the plows, they are an older segment of the workforce taken collectively, and they have been dealing with, you know, is it time for me to retire? And increasing numbers of them have done that. Certainly, we've seen some changes due to COVID, and we'll get back to those in a minute. But a large part of what seems to be going on here is it's now a lot tougher to get your CDL than it was 5 years ago. A couple of reasons for that. The requirements of CDL are increasing. You can't get it the way you used to. You've got to have certified trainers, so on and so forth. So taking someone who doesn't have the CDL and getting them to the point of being a CDL equipped plow driver is a non-trivial exercise. Um, if you hire somebody now, the odds are, if you've got to get them through CDL training, they will not be driving a snowplow for you this winter. That's just reality. So, there are those things that are long-term goals. As I say, we've been dealing with an older workforce, but that's also a generational thing. The older workforce, those of my generation, it tended to be our attitude towards overtime was or is a little different than young employees might face or might exhibit today. What I mean by that is people in their 50s and 60s, again, as a rule, very happy to do overtime, to take the pay, the extra pay, and use that to enhance their lifestyle. People in their 20s and 30s, while they might do the overtime, are going to want to take time off in lieu so they have time to spend with their families rather than money to spend on their families. You can, we can say, well, this is better or that is better. It's really irrelevant. It's what people want to do as their own choice. And, we have to, I think, be aware that there are different drivers for the workforce today than there were, 20, 30 years ago. The second thing is, and this gets us back into the whole COVID thing. COVID, of course, threw a whole bunch of wrenches into just about every aspect of our life. And one of the things it seems to have done, and the data on this is not conclusive by any means, but it's moving beyond the state of simply anecdotes into the field of real data, is that people are reevaluating their working life. They are looking at it and saying, well, is this really what I want to do? We're seeing it especially, apparently, in the service industry. People who have worked, long hours for relatively little pay in the restaurant industry, for example, are saying, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And again, it's not that we can say, well, that's wrong of you to do that. No, that's just where people are. Our challenge comes, how do we make the prospect of working, in our case, driving a snowplow, appealing to people? Because there is clearly a degree to which it's not. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a labor shortage in terms of plow operators. So what can we do about that? Well, there are some things that are beyond our control. For example, if our trucks are all big trucks that you require a CDL to drive, that's a constraint. We simply have to do that. But I am aware there are cities out there that are looking at their mix of equipment where they used to go, it's all big, dump trucks. They're now saying, well, let's take some of those bigger pickup trucks, the 450s, the 550s, whatever the equivalent may be, and be using those to do some of our plowing instead. Can we make that work? Why is that important? Well, it doesn't require a CDL to drive those sorts of pickup trucks. So we reduce that constraint. The other thing is just in general to think about the employment package, if you will. What helps people to choose to come and work for an agency? There's the money, there are the benefits, and there is the work environment. Those are the three key things. Depending on your situation, you may or may not be able to do very much about the money. I know that in a number of agencies here in Iowa, where I live, when they found themselves beginning to lose workers, to surrounding agencies, they did a fairly rapid and in-depth review of their compensation package and said, we need to update this and make it more attractive to our potential employees, to our current and our future employees. If you are facing difficulties hiring workers and you haven't done that, you haven't done a review of your compensation package, that might be a good thing to do. That could be worthwhile. Now, again, there are constraints there. But you know what? There are also constraints if you can't plow the streets. You know, we've got to balance those things. And, you know, ultimately we need enough people behind the wheel to make things work. If we don't have that, then, you know, all we're going to be doing is basically wishing the winter away, which is not really an effective winter maintenance strategy. So we can come back to that, and I'm sure there'll be time for questions, you know, as we go on. So don't be shy about doing that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the whole issue of sustainability. We're seeing increasingly around the country, not everywhere, but there are more and more locations around the country where agencies are finding their potential winter maintenance actions constrained because of environmental concerns. Okay, it might be we can't use abrasives because they do bad things to air quality. It might be we have to limit our use of salt because it does bad things to water quality. All of those are factors that are being folded into people's thinking when it comes to winter maintenance operations. The nice thing about this, first thing is, you know, yeah, we've got to accept that that's a reality. It's happening. People are seeing this, and we're going to have to react to it. It's better to be ahead of the curve rather than behind the curve, I would say. You know, the more proactive we can be on this, the better we will be. Put it another way, which is perhaps a little more brutal. Do you want to be making the decisions about what winter maintenance operations you can conduct? Or do you want somebody else based out of an office somewhere else to be making those decisions for you? And I think most of us would rather we were making the decisions. So what is new in this regard that can help us? And I think one of the really interesting things that's come about over the last decade or so is the ability, first of all, in non-contact ways to measure grip on the pavement. Now, what do I mean by that? Non-contact, first of all, I don't have to pull a wheel over the road to measure the friction. That's the, if you will, the traditional way of doing that. It works very well. It's been done on airports around the world for decades. Okay, but it's expensive. The equipment to do that is very expensive. An alternative are non-contact sensors that look at the pavement surface and measure a number of things on there: the presence of ice, the presence of liquid, the temperature of the pavement, weather, and so on and so forth, and fold all of that into their own little algorithm and come up with a number they call grip. It correlates pretty well with more traditional measures of road surface friction. So we know that it has meaning. And what it gives us is a real-time measure of the condition of the road. And that's important in terms of controlling salt or other chemical application on the road. If we know how slippery the road is, we know the temperature of the road, we know things like, and these are more you know, static things like how much traffic there is normally on the road and so on and so forth, it is relatively easy to calculate how much material we should put down now to ensure that until we next come back around, the friction is going to stay above a certain level. In other words, the road is going to remain safe. Now, to do that, first of all, you can, 10 years ago, we started seeing static sensors that you could put on a pole, just like a traditional road weather information system, and they would measure the friction at a given location in the road network. Awesome. What we're seeing now, and a number of vendors are doing this, is the ability to mount those same sensors on the truck. So you can see where you are right now on the road system, over the whole road system, and use that information to adjust. And we're not here to automate that yet. We're not at that point yet, but conceptually, you get the reading in the cab and the operator can say, oh, my friction level's actually looking really nice at the moment. And I know, I'm near the end of the storm. I can perhaps dial my application rate of materials back down. Or conversely, wow, that's a little slippier than I wanted. And I know the temperature of the pavement is going to drop and we're not done with this storm yet. I better apply a little more. Now, long term, it may be that whole process is automated. But this, to me, speaks to a really important tool in sustainable winter maintenance operations. That is, knowing the actual conditions of the road right now so we can adjust our application rate accordingly. And I raise that because there are many agencies around the US that simply, they have basically one standard application rate for every storm, regardless of what storm it is. Okay, we always go out, we put down 300 pounds a lane mile. Well, there are some storms where that's fine. There are some where that's not enough, and there are some where that's way too much. So then you go to the next level in this, where you begin your storm with a forecast and with up to the minute observations of the road network, and you know what the pavement temperature is and all of that, and you say, well, given this, we're going to have a target application rate for this storm of so many pounds a lane mile. And that's what you go out and that's what you apply. And that's what we would call a variable application rate strategy. It says, in essence, every storm is different. Therefore, our response to every storm should be different. And that, to me, seems a very logical approach to this whole thing. We all know every storm is indeed different, and we're all comfortable with that. Okay. Well, if that's the case, at least our application rates can be different for every storm. And then the next step beyond that is what I've been talking about, where we're getting real-time readings from where the truck is right now, combining that with detailed forecasts on what the storm is going to do and therefore what the road conditions are going to do over the next few hours until we get back around to that point on our network again. And that then determines how much material we might consider putting down on. So a couple of thoughts there. The worker woes thing, the sustainability thing. It's all about, with sustainability, it's really, it's interesting. It's a word that sort of burst onto the transportation scene maybe 20 years ago. And everyone was saying, we've got to be sustainable. Well, okay, fine. But really, it's something that people have been striving for quite a long time. There have been programs known as sensible salting for a long time, and people have been doing those. And really what sustainability and winter maintenance is about is being efficient and effective in your use of resources. So you go out and you understand that the primary way we get snow off the road is by plowing. Okay, we never try and just burn the snow off the road. Doesn't matter if there's only an inch. If we're out there, we're plowing that inch. And then if we need to, we are putting materials down. We're not going out there and saying, "Oh, I can't be bothered to plow, I'll just burn it off with materials." It's saying different conditions require different responses. It's asking questions like, hey, are all my roads in the road network I have to take care of equally important? Or are some more critical than others? And if some are more critical than others, how do I adjust my operations to take that into account? So lots of things there, all wrapped up in this word, sustainability. It's not just the environment. It's a balance of the environment. It's a balance of our budget. And it's a balance of societal expectations. People expect certain things out of our winter maintenance operations. That's one constraint. We have a certain amount of money to achieve that. That's another constraint. And then the third constraint that folds into sustainability is we want to do that, provide a safe and mobile transportation system without having an undue impact on the environment. So Cody, Heather, I don't know if we have a way to get questions in, but I think now will be a really good time, if there are some questions, to see what we can do about answering those, or at least talking about.
All right. Will, I don't know that we have any questions for you today. Is there anything else you want to leave the crowd with before we end things?
Well, there is one thing, of course, and that is, I'm very aware it wasn't something I mentioned when I was talking about the worker woes, but when you do winter maintenance, when you're out there driving your plow, you tend to be out there at 3 a.m. in the morning when everybody else is home and in bed and wrapped up and feeling safe and snug and warm. You are, on behalf of the community, putting yourself in a potentially dangerous situation. So as we go forward into the winter, as the winter really gets going, do encourage people who are doing the plowing, stay safe, look after yourselves. Thank you very much for the work you do. All you may think that the only response that is out there is, why have you plowed in my driveway again, you wretched snowplow driver? But the reality is that whether people express it appropriately or not, the work you do is really important and really appreciated by many people. Again, I know we have a lot of supply chain issues. They would be a whole lot worse through the winter if we didn't have our plow drivers there. So huge thank you for the work that you all do. Please do stay safe. You do a job that is undertaken under sometimes very dangerous circumstances. So look after yourselves out there, take care. And, if I can help at all in any way, just let me know. And in the meantime, hope you all do stay safe and well going forward. So